Richard David Ellmann was a prominent American literary critic and biographer of the Irish writers James Joyce, Oscar Wilde, and William Butler Yeats. He won the U.S.National Book Award for Nonfiction for James Joyce, which is one of the most acclaimed literary biographies of the 20th century. Its 1982 revised edition was similarly recognized with the award of the James Tait Black Memorial Prize. A liberal humanist, Ellmann's academic work generally focused on the major modernist writers of the 20th century. Ellmann was born at Highland Park, Michigan, the second of three children of James Isaac Ellmann, lawyer, a Jewish Romanian immigrant, and his wife, Jeanette Barsuk, an immigrant from Kiev. He served in the United States Navy during World War II. He studied at Yale University, receiving his B.A., his M.A. and his Ph.D., for which he won the John Addison Porter Prize. In 1947 he was awarded a B.Lit degree from the University of Dublin, where he was resident while researching his biography of Yeats. As a Yale undergraduate, Ellmann was a member of Phi Beta Kappa, Chi Delta Theta, and, with James Jesus Angleton, the Yale Literary Magazine. He achieved Scholar of the Second Rank. The 1939 Yale Banner published an entitled Ellmann Account of a Chagrined Joseph, husband of Mary, and Jesus Christ's custodial father. Joseph was no match for the angel and for Mary's flattering tears. He felt a wince of disappointment at the idea that she had had a vision too, but then she was his wife, and perhaps the whole family now had the prophetic gift. He would have to try it out on the harvest. Meanwhile he would seek to forget his jealousy, despite the fact that the story sounded a bit fantastic to a reasonable man, which he guessed he was, and it would be well not to talk about it much outside. It was better to leave things the way they were. Not much of a wedding night, but one could tell white lies about that to one's friends. He would later return to teach at Yale, and with Charles Fadelson, Jr. He edited the extraordinarily important anthology, The Modern Tradition. He earlier taught at Northwestern, and at the University of Oxford, before serving as Emory University's Robert W. Woodruff Professor from 1980 until his death. He was Goldsmith's Professor of English Literature at Oxford University, 1970 to 1984, then Professor Emeritus, a Fellow at New College, Oxford, 1970 to 1987, and an Extraordinary Fellow at Wolfson College, Oxford from 1984 until his death. Ellmann used his knowledge of the Irish milieu to bring together four literary luminaries in four Dubliners: Wilde, Yeats, Joyce, and Beckett, a collection of essays first delivered at the Library of Congress. His wife, Mary Ellmann, whom he married in 1949, was an essayist. The couple had three children, Stephen, Maud, and Lucy, the first two being academics and the third a novelist and teacher of writing. Ellmann died of motor neurone disease in Oxford, aged 69. Many of his collected papers, artifacts, and ephemera were acquired by the University of Tulsa's McFarlane Library, Department of Special Collections and University Archives. Other manuscripts are housed in the Northwestern University's Library's Special Collections Department. Biographies. Yeats in Yeats, The Man and the Masks. Ellmann drew on conversations with George Yeats along with thousands of pages of unpublished manuscripts to write a critical examination of the poet's life. Joyce. Ellmann is perhaps most well known for his literary biography of James Joyce, a revealing account of the life of one of the 20th century's most influential literary figures. Anthony Burgess called James Joyce the greatest literary biography of the century. Edna O'Brien, the Irish novelist, remarked that H.G. Wells said that Finnegan's Wake was an immense riddle, and people find it too difficult to read. I have yet to meet anyone who has read and digested the whole of it, except perhaps my friend Richard Ellmann. Ellmann quotes extensively from Finnegan's Wake as epigraphs in James Joyce. Wilde. Ellmann's biography Oscar Wilde won a Pulitzer Prize and is still the standard line, capturing the warm-hearted and generous spirit of the legendary wit. He examined Wilde's ascent to literary prominence and his public downfall. Posthumously he won both the U.S. National Book Critics Circle Award in 1988 and the 1989 Pulitzer Prize for biography. The book was the basis for the 1997 film Wilde, directed by Brian Gilbert. It is considered to be the definitive work on the subject. Ray Monk, a philosopher and biographer, described Ellmann's Oscar Wilde as a rich, fascinating biography that succeeds in understanding another person. The Richard Ellmann Lectures. The Richard Ellmann Lectures in Modern Literature, now among the most prominent in North America, were established in honor of Richard Ellmann, who served Emory University as the first Robert W. Woodruff Professor from 1980 to 1987. For more than 40 years, Ellmann's writings set the highest standards of critical inquiry and humanistic scholarship. Richard Ellmann Lecturers 1988 Seamus Heaney, 1990 Dennis Donahue, 1992 Anthony Burgess, 1994 Helen Vendler, 1996 Henry Louis Gates Jr., 1999 A.S. Byatt, 2001 David Lodge, 2004 Salman Rushdie, 2006 Mario Vargas Llosa, 2008 Umberto Eco, 2010 Margaret Atwood. Bibliography. As author Yeats, The Man and the Masks. The Identity of Yeats. James Joyce. Eminent Domain. Yeats among Wilde, Joyce, Pound, Eliot, and Auden. Literary biography. An inaugural lecture delivered before the University of Oxford on 4 May 1971. Ulysses on the Liffey. Golden Codges. Biographical Speculations. The Consciousness of Joyce. James Joyce's 100th birthday. Side and front views. A lecture delivered at the Library of Congress on March 10, 1982. Oscar Wilde at Oxford. W. B. Yeats's second puberty. A lecture delivered at the Library of Congress on April 2, 1984. Oscar Wilde. 4 Dubliners. Wilde, Yeats, Joyce, and Beckett. Along the River Run. Selected Essays. As editor My Brother's Keeper. James Joyce's Early Years. The Critical Writings of James Joyce. Edwardians and Late Victorians. The Modern Tradition. Backgrounds of Modern Literature. Letters of James Joyce Volume 2. Letters of James Joyce Volume 3. Giacomo Joyce. Oscar Wilde, a collection of critical essays. The Artist is Critic. Critical Writings of Oscar Wilde. The Northern Anthology of Modern Poetry. Selected Letters of James Joyce. Modern Poems. An Introduction to Poetry. The Picture of Dorian Gray and Other Writings by Oscar Wilde.